Yo, 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 yo. Oh, man. Do we have a stream today? Today, we are deep diving into infrastructure. And let me tell you something, infrastructure isn't sexy, but we're about to make it sexy. We're about to deep dive into why you need to pay attention to Beamable. And I'm no longer, I have the best person to tell you about infrastructure. I mean, we brought the CEO, the founder himself from Beamable live from Dubai. John, how are the vibes in Dubai? Hold on, are we rich or are we is Web3 gaming dead in Dubai?
I just literally got off the plane and it's nighttime. So I don't know yet, but I don't think so. I suspect it's going pretty hard because I'm in back to back meetings and streams and parties and you name it for the whole week. So
Well,
not
I
quite
hope
dead
you have
yet.
a great time in Dubai. And give me what's happening in Dubai for Beamable. Like, what do you guys? Why are you out in Dubai right now? And what is it that you're looking to accomplish this week?
Well, I guess starting with the context, Beamable is an infrastructure company for games. So Web 2, Web 3, you name it, any game that has an online component, we provide infrastructure for social systems, for economic systems, multiplayer, all the online stuff you need for a game, which is like 95% of games today. And we've been at this for a few years. And along the way, first, we started getting approached by a lot of Web3 games that were bit more the bigger games with real multiplayer functionality, and they needed backend infrastructure that worked really well with Web3. And that was something that we baked into our platform because I myself had built we didn't even call it Web3 games at that time, it was blockchain games. We built a blockchain edition of a game called Star Trek Timelines back in the day. I think it was about 2018. So we had all this DNA present in the infrastructure to be able to take on Web3 games as it started to take off. But then what we're doing more recently is we're launching our own token and our own Web3 incarnation, which is in something called DPIN, Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. It's a DPIN we're building on top of Solana to allow game companies of any kind, by the way, Web3, Web2, like I said, like we're using blockchain to provision servers, game servers, make it available to everybody more economically and around an open source architecture and an open network architecture where anybody can participate in it, anyone can help grow the ecosystem, and you get continuity and sustainability too, which one of the things that people don't realize is when you choose a back end technology to power your game, you're taking a pretty big risk. Like if that goes away, your game will be shut down, right? So, and you don't necessarily want to just try to build it all yourself because that also costs millions and millions of dollars. It could be 20 million plus to build out the R&D for like a truly scalable live services infrastructure. And by doing it as DPIN, we really solve for that because what we're doing is creating this open network on top of open source technology where you know that there's lots of capacity providers on the network. You're not stuck with one Amazon or one Azure or one GCP. In fact, they can all be present on the network too, but it opens it up to bare metal service providers and all kinds of other data center operators that want to support the game industry.
Yeah, I love the breakdown of what Beamable is and what you guys are doing. I mean, so let's go right into it then. I was gonna ask you like Dubai, like why is Beamable in Dubai, and like what are you looking forward to this week as you're meeting a lot of new people, and it's probably not only just Web3 gaming. You're gonna be at a lot of the events because token is very much a Web3 itself, not just gaming. Anything outside of also gaming that Beamable is also being able to help?
We're always at any event looking for new game studios that have a back end problem or a live services problem to solve. That's why we're in business. So of course we're here to meet up with all the folks who are building on our infrastructure or thinking about it and getting prepared to scale out. So that's a big part of why we're here. But the big thing is the DPIN network that I described. So DPIN, it comes along with it a token launch. So we're tokenizing essentially compute. So a way to think of it is think of a DPIN network as Airbnb, but for cloud servers, right? So the network doesn't actually own the cloud servers or the infrastructure, it's the community and the data centers that operate that data center capacity, and they participate in it. So who are we here to talk to? Like I said, of course, games, but anybody who is relevant, from changes to people who are excited with this intersection between gaming and infrastructure. People are excited about it's also infrastructure problems. You don't have to be anything. So it's open to the market. Huge markets into $100 billion.
Hey, John.
Access.
I think you are coming in a little bit like a robot. I don't know if you have a couple tabs open, but I think something's bringing your internet down a little bit. Maybe just turn the camera off for a couple seconds and then like. While I have you reload, one of the cool things. There you go. Can you hear me now? I think we're still a little bit like a robot. But you there? We need to talk to the infrastructure network at the hotel you're at. Well, while you load up, I actually wanted to start it off also with a great video that I saw from when you guys put out. Wanted to share it with everybody. So while you fix the internet, I'm going to play this real quick. Really love the commercial that you guys have all built. So I'm going to play this for a little bit. There we go. Are you still there? Oh, I think we still got Robot John. Sorry, guys, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. I think John's trying to fix his internet. Hey, John, I don't know if maybe I'm gonna bring you down and bring you back up and see maybe like. How about now, John? Oh, now we lost John for a little bit. I know John's out in Dubai right now, and I think we're getting a little bit. There we go. I see him backstage now. So let me try to bring him up again. Hey, John, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I'm not convinced it's improved, but I do hear you.
Perfect. And now you sound loud and clear, and you're back in business.
I press reload on the browser, so who knows? Maybe that's all it takes.
Yeah, we'll talk to the infrastructure provider over in your hotel. We'll let them know. John, You mentioned a lot about Dubai, and you're meeting a lot of people. Look, Beamable's been very, very hot these past couple of weeks, especially after the massive announcement of that Series A. From there, it's like wildfire that we're seeing all over socials about what Beamable does. You mentioned a lot of what you guys are building and understanding why games need you. But what are the pain points that Web3 developers or even Web2 developers, what are the pain points that they're having of not understanding or why they need to hire or work with Beamable yet? I always hear, well, I don't think I'm ready, or hey, I think I could build it my own. And sometimes building it on your own isn't the smartest thing, right? I always say this as a marketing agency. I always say, like, there's a reason why we have a team behind what we do. We're professionals. We know what we're doing. Why take the chance on try to hire someone that may not know what they're doing? We'll have to have a learning curve. Tell me about Beamable. Like, what are those pain points, and why is it that there's sometimes a hesitation for some of the, hey, we need to move forward with you?
Games is an online service business now, and you need online capabilities in your game, whether that's matchmaking or social systems or an online economy or something complex like a blockchain driven online economy. And these are all examples of what our platform does for you. The problem with doing it yourself is it's sort of like, it looks easy in the beginning when it's just one or two things. And when you start building it out, you end up having essentially a tax that you've imposed on yourself, because every new feature that you add is going to slow you down. You're going to have to update your online systems to support it, and it's not really going to be a workflow that's easy for your developers either. Like, we've invested very heavily in making this seamless integration to the major 3D engines that people use, like Unreal or Unity. So it's really easy to just download the SDK and it becomes drag and drop. We've made it so you can use the same languages that you're used to. So if you're a Unity developer, for example, you can just code all of your backend logic if you have custom logic in C#, which is the language that Unity uses. So the reason why people might still try to do this on their own is because they're worried about the risk of the platform they choose going away. And that's exactly why we're building a DPIN on top of this technology, so that you'll no longer be dependent on any one service provider or data center provider, whether it's Amazon, Azure, GCP, the bare metal service providers that are out there. We aggregate all of that together. It's like having a virtual hyperscaler being the word that you call someone like an Amazon. This is more like Airbnb for game servers. So the community brings the game servers and the infrastructure to the table, gets you much more economic access to it. And if any one of these individual servers goes away, it doesn't really matter, because we can re-provision and reallocate all of your backend needs back to the network. So what I really urge every game developer to think about when they're building a game is increasing their velocity and maximizing their shots on goal. So be able to try out new features in your game, move fast, get market feedback, incorporate it into the game that you're using very rapidly, because that's what makes for a successful game. It's really hard if you've constantly got distractions that are essentially technology, because the player doesn't care about technology. The player cares how fun your game is going to be. And last year, there were 19,000 games on Steam. So it's really hard to stand out. You really do have to make the best game possible. People don't care about buzzwords like Web3 or Web2 or any of that stuff. They really just, the mainstream market, all they cares about is a fun gaming experience. So you have to be focused on that as your number one priority. And to do that successfully, your team has to rally around high velocity, try a lot of things, ship like every week, if not every day. Like, you got to keep shipping this game and seeing how your players are enjoying it and learn from it and incorporate back into it. So used to be, by the way, that people built their own 3D engines. Like, you could go back 15, 20 years before Unity and Unreal Engine came around. People were actually building their own 3D engines. Backend is actually even more complicated than a lot of this 3D graphics, because there's so many moving parts and different pieces that have to integrate together. And you add to that the huge issues with just scaling out, because when you launch an online game, if you're successful, and I hope everybody watching this who's working on a game is successful at having millions of players in your game, you don't want that to fall over right away. And if you're not prepared to deal with a lot of load, it's difficult to just scramble and fix that in a live environment. You got to be ready for it. So just as people would choose a 3D engine when they first start building their game, we really believe passionately that right after your 3D engine, your back end infrastructure is also a decision you want to make, so that you can just focus on creating that fun for your players, and you can draw upon a really large R&D investment both on the 3D engine side and the back end infrastructure side that you essentially get to take advantage of, right? It's like all that tech has already been crowdsourced through a lot of R&D online that companies like Beamable have done, and you get to bring that into your game instead of have to reinvent the wheel for the 10,000th time.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up some great points. I love that you are saying ship, because product market fit is probably the most overlooked thing in Web3, right? It's the thing that I, as marketer, I'm always like telling, game developers, hey, we have to make sure that the user likes what they see. The user is experiencing an immersive gameplay that allows them to keep enjoying what you're building, or else we're going to put out a product and there's not going to be anybody that wants to play this game because it's just not fun. So I love the aspect of what you guys are building and how you guys are seeing this. You guys have had a lot of success even with games already. What are the things right now with the games that you have had success that there's a trophy case at Beamable headquarters that you guys have that showcases some of the cool things that Beamable has done with games? What has that been already?
You're asking me to choose my favorite children here, but we've launched about 100 games on the platform at this point. So we have really solid product market fit ourselves in terms of being a platform that developers can take advantage of. I think the thing that really sets apart the most successful developers are the ones that take that velocity that you had in the development of the game, and then when you're operating the game and you go into what we call the live ops phase of your game, that velocity also keeps up. So it's also not enough just to ship a game, right? Like there's so many things you have to get right in game development. You have to ship the game. It has to be a fun game. You have to find the users for it. Okay, you've done all of that. Now you're live. You want to make sure people don't get bored of this game after playing it for a couple of days. So you're going to have to ship updates. You're going to have to create social systems that encourage people to cooperate or compete with each other. So the thing that I always see in the games that have real sustainability around them is that they have prioritized that. And it just comes back to my own experience as a game developer, shipping games like Star Trek and Game of Thrones and Walking Dead, and like working with these big TV show IP. It was build the right game, move fast through the development process, because you really want to try a lot of things with your players. But as soon as you go live, you want to keep delighting them. Like they're playing, like literally the day they are playing, and it's a brand new game, you want to show them new stuff that second day, right? So set that pace for new online content, tournaments, events, things like that, so that people get accustomed to it. They get habituated to it. So they know that, hey, Wednesday every week is going to be the I'm just making stuff up. That's the day that we drop a new event or a new competition or some new items that people can get. Kind of creating those habits in the live ops is a huge part of then actually scaling up and monetizing, because you're going to want to keep those players that showed up early. Sometimes we call those early players the golden cohort, because they're often the most valuable players you're going to ever have, is those first ones that show up in the first month, probably because they've been waiting for this game to come out for a long time. You don't want to botch that golden cohort. You can't really just fix it later and reacquire those users. You can. There are techniques for reacquiring people, but it's really hard to do and it's expensive. So you want to get them, keep them in, and then have them start telling all their friends to come join this game and play with them there. That's live ops.
Yeah, and look, I think as a marketer, right, I'm a big person or proponent of saying user and journey, right? It's making sure that this extended family, these kids, or this aficionado of fans that you have, that you've built, you make sure that they become marketers. And how do they become marketers? By putting out a product that is enjoyable, that's there for them to be entertained, that is a great game, But all of this is also because of the infrastructure that allows them to be able to keep being immersive in their gameplay. So I really love that you've kind of touched on, hey guys, like developers, if you're listening to this, you have to make sure you understand what that user end journey looks like for your user so that they become, that KOL or creator on socials and they're constantly bull posting your game. I love that all take right there. So John, metas change, technology changes. How do you see the vision of Web3 in the future for what you're building? How do you keep building? And what are the next things already on the roadmap behind the scenes that you're saying, okay, gaming could change courses. Nintendo Switch is coming out soon, and they're very much adapting new changes. What changes maybe that have, gamers hate changes, by the way. So we know that we're already seeing the the choir there speaking, but we're seeing gaming always evolving because of technology. Beamable, what's the vision for the future of Web3 gaming, and how do you see you guys staying focused on what the meta might change?
I think it's just incumbent on us to bring together for the developer the features that make it really easy for your player to get involved in the game. So I talked mostly so far about how easy it is for the developer with game engine integration and whatnot, but ultimately the features that are back-end compatible, whether it's things like account login or importing your wallet contents for a Web3 game, like all of those things need to just be seamless and super easy. And it takes a lot of investment to get those technologies to be not only easy for the developer, but easy for the end user as well. So when you partner with us, you know that you're with a company that takes those things really, really seriously, who knows that ultimately your business is going to succeed or fail based on how players engage with your game and actually play it. Like, is it easy for them to actually sign up for the game? So what you might call best practices are always evolving. What you called the meta a couple of minutes ago, that's our job, to keep an eye on a lot of that meta of the changing environment. And there's always new categories of games that come. You said gamers don't like a lot of change. Well, in general, they don't like things to go really far afield in a game that they're already playing, but you also need to be out there able to enable the next wave of games that are coming out that might have very different features or new social dynamics and things like that in it. Just looking at it, Web3 specifically, since you asked, like, I'm very interested in continuing to use blockchain technology and apply it to gaming in ways that are also not just the financial components of gameplay. So there's often a focus in Web3 of like trading marketplaces and NFTs and sort of the open economy aspect, which I'm a big believer in because I wrote about this years ago. But there's also some really, really interesting applications of blockchain technology for things like tournaments and match records and things like that, where you can actually record a lot of history and make it open and transparent so that anyone can access it. So I think that in the future, Web3 gaming at its core is often going to have these financial components in terms of the item economy, but the ones that are going to start to pull away and do really interesting work and open it up to their community are ones that leverage the composability of Web3 and start inscribing more of this data on chain about player histories, tournaments, competitive features, and things like that. Because then what you're doing is effectively opening up an ecosystem where people can create new software that ingests that information on the chain and represents it in new and interesting ways. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing as well over the next couple of years, and some of the developers building on us.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up some great points, and I think again, like I love the belief and your thesis on Web3, right, and why you guys are building in Web3. But I also have to ask that $1,000,000 question, right? You've had a lot of success in Web2. You've worked with probably the biggest names in Web2. Why venture into the Web3? You mentioned you've written about some stuff in blockchain and everything, but it's still too early, right? I mean, Web3 gaming is very early. We haven't seen a Web3 game actually launch yet, right? Like a fully AAA title launch yet. We're still very much in a development cycle, in an early cycle. There's still a lot of 50-50 chance of success rate. And in gaming, as you mentioned, of the amount of games that launch on Steam, how many of them fail, right? And so knowing all this and knowing your success, what was it that you said, okay, I'm okay being early, but you know what? I know what this could really be because we could be a huge player to help these games get to that next level. What was it that sparked that interest?
All right, so I have to kind of almost take a step back from them and talk to kind of why what I think is interesting in Web3 and how long it will take. So if you look at the Web3 gaming market, I think there's sort of like a barbell distribution of like the kinds of games and the budgets associated with them. So on the left hand of the barbell, you've got all these games that are, and this isn't to take anything away from them, they're fun, but they're prediction market games, they're Ponzi games, they're web browser based Telegram games. It's that kind of stuff where they're sort of light and simple. Totally nothing wrong with it. This is the same kind of games that built like the whole social gaming ecosystem on Facebook many years ago. So it's fine. But I think that for the kinds of games that people are actually going to engage with, Web3 games are ultimately going to compete with AAA and AA games directly, right? They're going after largely the same players. To be successful and scale that out, it's not just the Web3 enthusiast who's going to need to play this game and enjoy it. It has to be the general gaming market. And once you're doing that, you're effectively competing with all of those 19,000 games on Steam last year, all of the AAA games that can get created, all the MMORPGs that can get created. So that's really hard. The thing with those AAA, AA games is they take time to build. And I think the first wave of Web3 games, frankly, a lot of them were just those other category, that left of the barbell kind of game. They didn't take a lot of money to build, but they also weren't the kind of things that largely sustained an audience over time. Maybe they will now, though. Like there's a lot of interesting things going on in terms of product distribution, where some of those games are actually getting audiences, prediction market games in particular. But for the games that are going to compete for that traditional game player, it's going to be those kind of games that we were showing in the reel that you started off our talk with, right? It's games that are highly graphical, immersive, with really interesting multiplayer dynamics and just really, really solid gameplay. So that takes time. At Beamable, we support all game developers, and we love all these categories of games where the market hasn't truly emerged at scale yet. And it's not just Web3, by the way, it's stuff like VR. Like VR, that while there are a couple of really interesting cases, VR hasn't scaled up to the same level as a lot of consoles. We've actually sold a lot of units, but the engagement level just isn't quite there yet in VR. So we have a horizontal strategy. We're more like a game engine in our mentality, like a Unreal Engine or a Unity. And we just think it's important to support all game developers. And what that means is that we support everybody. And as these categories emerge and start gaining more and more traction, we're already there ahead of that, ready to support them, while we essentially are able to take a lot of the customers in the traditional markets where the scale already exists and translate that, frankly, into R&D dollars back at Beamable, where we get to build all of this technology for everybody. So I'm not a big believer in the sort of the super niche-y, like there have been these Web3 oriented like game development platforms. The problem with them is Web3, frankly, is too narrow of a problem set for the game industry. When you build the back end or the live services for a game, it has a lot of complexity which spans all game types. And of course, you would want to import all of the past learning and the ongoing learning that exists within Web 2 and take advantage of that within Web 3. And ultimately, I think Web 2 will also benefit from a lot of innovation that happens in Web 3 as well, such as what we ourselves are doing by building this DPIN that uses Web 3 to orchestrate and provision and price the servers that you need to run your game. Well, Web 2 gets to take advantage of that. And for us, they don't have to know anything about blockchain, right? So they're directly benefiting from all this investment in blockchain technology that's already made, whether or not they want to change the business model of their game. And for the vast majority of them, they won't change their business model. They're going to just keep doing things the way they always have. And they want to make sure that they can find that fun through a process which doesn't slow them down by building all these pieces that we've been talking about.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up some great points with a couple of things that you just mentioned, and you made me start thinking about the evolution of Web3 gaming as well, and the evolution of Web2 gaming as well, right? And I think like with what you're building, and especially for infrastructure, we're seeing a lot of competition for consoles. We mentioned a little bit about Nintendo, but we're also seeing where games are living, right? Especially now, more on Samsung TV has a gaming hub. Netflix has a gaming page. You mentioned Facebook gaming. We have handheld consoles within blockchain now. Sui is coming out with a gameplay. So we see that gaming is really trying to find ways more to be user friendly, right? And again, I think the evolution of that is definitely happening. Where do you see a lot of this kind of gearing and navigating to? Is there something in particular that you are watching as well from a Beamable side? If Samsung TVs takes off and this is the next thing, right? Or is it Netflix games that takes off? Do YouTube games? Does Web3 gaming as well need to figure out, hey, what pond do you want to play in?
It really comes down to this, which is taking advantage of a new distribution channel for your game, whether it's Netflix or whatever, any of these things that you mentioned. That should not be a heavy lift from a technology standpoint. It should just be the platform that enables it. Again, a lot of learning there in terms of how 3D engines have accomplished this by being relatively universal across different consoles, different GPUs, different 3D rendering APIs. So we're trying to bring that same focus on you, the developer, should work on the fun parts of your game that your player cares about, and technology for online infrastructure to enable multiplayer and all of that. That's just something that plugs in and you can take advantage of, so that as you change and you evolve and you might want to target new distribution channels, you've really made a future proofing decision by going with a platform like Beamable, because you didn't just spend all this time putting all of your investment in one technology stack that now has to be completely rewritten. You can see the same thing, frankly, on blockchain, even too. Like if we rolled, so I should say Solana was one of the earlier investors in Beamable, the Solana Foundation, and Solana was the first blockchain that we supported when we kind of went down this journey like 3 years ago. There were a bunch of blockchains at the time that claimed to be gaming blockchains, and some of them have survived, including Solana, I think, leading the pack for sure. But a lot have just completely gone sideways. So what do you do? What do those game developers do that started with someone else who isn't even relevant in today's market? Do they have to start over again? At Beamable, we've structured things for our, in terms of blockchain integration, for example, is hey, if you went on one of those blockchains, everything else you built about your game will just port over. In fact, you could just change what the underlying blockchain implementation is to Solana, for example, and you don't have to do anything else. Like your game just keeps running. You don't have to get distracted by that. You might have to move your assets over if you started going to live ops and we're actually dealing with players. But for people who are in development who need to switch, like this is a big thing that can cause a huge hurdle, and just because of costs, slow you down, all of that stuff. So really believe in creating these abstraction layers through our technology to make it simple to switch and go with the technologies and the other enablers and platforms and distribution channels that you as the game developer can benefit most from.
John, what's your take? Do you think it's going to be one game that brings in the big numbers, or is it going to be multiple games that bring in numbers? Is it mobile gaming? Is it AAA, indie? Like, where do you've got the experience, you've seen it before, you've worked with many projects, you're working with Web3 projects, you're seeing the way that they're developing. I think that for what I always say, there's first of all still a language issue or a stigma, right, between the word NFT, the word Web3, blockchain, crypto. In the East, in the West, one calls it GameFi, the other one calls it crypto gaming. Man, we ourselves have our own language issue. But what is it still like that you see, or is it hey, you see it this year? Do you see it next year? What's that take? Because you mentioned before you had a thesis for Web3 gaming and like a timeline for it almost. And so, what does that timeline look like? Do you from an infrastructure provider that you're going to see this really be taking off?
The timeline you never know when we're talking about like AAA styled games, we are starting to see some games shipping this year and next year that are very credible within AA, AAA. So I think that, by the end of next year, we're going to see pretty interesting games, if not even just by the end of this year, given some of the games that are launching. You asked a question about like how many games can survive in this market. I think, look at the overall gaming market. It's $200 billion a year. And yes, there was 19,000 games on Steam, but there's certainly a large number of games that are able to scale and operate successful businesses within that. I mean, it's 19,000 Steam. It's like, I don't know how many on mobile, 100,000 or a million plus probably shipped per year on some of those platforms. So it's just a huge number of games out there shipping. So when you ask the question, like, is it 1, 2, 3 games versus a lot of games? It just comes back to that central question of the Web3 games that are going to be most successful are not really competing just over a Web3 gamer, because that's that left of the barbell distribution gamer, and we already know what they do. They want to speculate and flip things and show up and participate in Ponzi-nomics and get out. So that's fine. Build those games; they can be fun. But to have a real sustainable mass market game, you're competing with all of those other games. So it's almost like asking, can gaming survive without 2 or 3 like ginormous titles? Like I'm looking to games like GTA just as much as the next person. Like that's going to be a ginormous title, almost certainly. But the game industry doesn't depend on a mega hit like that. I mean, we've survived 10 years without it anyway. So we don't need those games to propel the whole market. The game industry is very diverse in terms of the preferences, the genres, the categories, the art styles, the consoles, the platforms, all of that stuff. So I would just remind Web3 game developers to remember that you are competing in that market. You're not competing for a Web3 gamer. And frankly, most the really strong teams that I talk to, they know that. They know that they are going after the general gaming market, and they're going to use Web3 to add clever, novel game mechanics that people haven't seen before. But it's not like they're just catering to people that were looking for that Web3 game to come along and rescue the industry. The big games in this, they're going to be games people are going to talk about. They're not going to be talking about NFTs and blockchain. Most of these people won't even know what those terms mean. They're just going to play these games and think that they're super fun.
Yeah, you put it in great words and great perspective as well, and understanding that. I think like I'll say this, a couple things. I like to relate things to our current technology, jargon words, right? When NFC for cell phones came out, everybody used to say like, "What is this NFC that you keep saying?" And now you go to a store and you're just like, "Do you take Apple Pay? Do you take Samsung Pay?" And it's like, "Yeah," and they're like,
Exactly.
"Oh, okay." But if you said, "Is your terminal NFC enabled?" They'd be like, what did he just say? And I think like the same thing for us. It's like, I just want to play a game.
Absolutely. Like, here's what Web3 needs a really good marketing person. Web3 needs Steve Jobs to come along and be like, Web3, no one gives a shit about that term. Rebrand it, like communicate what's fun about it and get rid of it. Like, yes, you hit the nail on the head much earlier in the conversation, which is we're a market that on the development side, or people who are interested in tokens and new protocols and things like that, we really love the technology. And even if you don't love the technology, but you're more like on the investor speculator side, you still like are forced to understand something about the technology that makes something unique so that you can model for yourself like what's interesting about it in terms of the token economy that will emerge. So we love to get into all these techie terms and different cryptographic systems for proving things, and like all the different kinds of improvement proposals to various protocols that can exist out there, and things with numbers in it. Like it is a weird thing that's almost like you're dealing with people who want to work on compilers or GPU architecture, very technical stuff. And we have not gotten very good at making the jump from that technical understanding to making it marketable to the average person. I remember when I first got involved in Web3 or just blockchain many years ago, like I remember what the learning curve was like. And I just had to be like, okay, just dive in and just start learning all the words. And eventually, it clicks and you just kind of have to get into it. But the average person has no motivation for that. So why would they want to learn that? Like, make these things understandable to people. So yeah, Web3 needs a new chief marketing officer, I think.
Well, it's funny you go into this right now because again, we run a marketing agency and we always get inquiries to get hired. And I have this like 50 question questionnaire that I give somebody before they hire us. And it's kind of like whether I know whether we could be compatible or not. And my first two questions, and I'll tell you this, my first question is, can your company live without using any of the crypto names, NFTs, crypto, blockchain, Web3? And if they can answer yes, the second question is, and it's very simple, is who is your audience, right? And those two, I cannot tell you how many times the founder or the team comes back to me and they're like, yeah, I'm starting to realize I have like an audience in a language issue. Like, how can you help me? How can we talk about this? And it's just very much, again, how much thought or plan process did we put into certain things? And I think, I even coming into this space, I used to get very much laughed at a lot when I used to go into meetings and I would say, talk to me about your business plan. Talk to me about what year 1 and year 3. How do you make revenue? Who's the user and how are they going to produce it? And I used to always get the answers of, Jorge, the community is going to buy the token. We're going to go to the moon and, community is going to sustain this. And I'm like, you give people free money and they make money and they can't take profits. And I'm just like, like what kind of investor are these? And I was like, because, Web2 companies would die for them. And so, I think a lot of things just didn't get understood. And here we are now, finally, like, every single game company is like revenue. Every single game company is like user, and what user that looks like, and what a user is, who a user is. So I love that you kind of have brought this into this conversation and really kind of analyzed and deep dived into it. Look, John, I know we got like about 5 minutes left, and I kind of want to make sure I give you kind of a couple closing remarks, but look, Beamable is super hot right now on the socials. You guys have a lot of users coming in. What is it that a user right now or somebody new that's just listening to this, why should they head over to Beamable? What tasks out there? What is the normal user really should be getting their notifications on for what you guys are building?
Yeah, so I mean, we sort of deal with two audiences at Beamable. One is game developers. And by the way, not Web3 game developers, not mobile game developers, all game developers. And it's not, of course, we then have Web3 features in the platform or mobile gaming features. If you're building an iOS product and you want to do payments on iOS, guess what? We support all of that, but it's not like we cater to a particular kind of game developer. We support all game developers who want to build a live services game. So if that's you, go to beamable.com and you can just download the SDK. You can start using it. It's free to start using. So you can easily try it out. The broad Web3 market, that's where we're building this whole DPIN launch that's going to happen later this year. And if you want to learn more about that, go to beamable.network. That's where you can read the white paper, learn about our approach to DPIN, what the tokenomics are. We haven't announced, we get asked about 1 million times a day when token, things like that. We know internally what that is, but we are not ready to talk about it externally. But join into the community, take part in it there, and you can be part of helping us launch this, whether it's the token or also we're going to be releasing nodes that you'll be able to operate as part of the network. For example, you'll be able to operate what we call validator nodes, which make sure that the game studios that provision workloads from game servers only get charged for what they actually used, It's all done fairly, so you can be part of the community that operates that part of the network. So all of those details are going to be on beamable.network, and it's a chance that you can participate in the game industry and own a piece of this future building out infrastructure for all of these game studios, Web 2 and Web 3, right? So it's for all game developers. So when you come to Beamable.network, realize that this is something we're building to support the entire game industry horizontally of all developers, mobile, console, Web 3, Web 2, all of it, because they all need live services systems to prosper in today's market. And for the first time, we're taking that kind of capability, taking it out of the silos that were in the past, things like Microsoft proprietary APIs that you can only go to them for, or Amazon in their version of it, right? Instead of having to choose that, we're creating a horizontal platform for everybody, and we're leveraging Web3 technology to do things like payment settlement and orchestration and provisioning, things that are at Web3 that blockchain technology is really, really good at. Operating an order book, for example, like we're essentially creating an order book around this new liquid asset class of computation, which for game studios ends up being game servers is what they need. So come check out beamable.network if you're interested in all that. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, John. Well, when token, I guess, is a question, but you are at token 2049, so the token is happening right now. It's just a different thing that you're at. So, sorry. So definitely, lots of things are happening. Look, John, appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on to today's show. As you all know, gaming NFTs. You know, we've had a really, really cool run right now with Solana Gaming. We launched our Game Pass, and 45,000 almost minted right now. And again, thanks to Beamable as well for participating with us. We've had a record number of people inquiring about what's happening on Solana. And I just want to thank you for showing your support and believing in Solana Gaming as well. And hey, everybody that's listening, make sure you give John a follow. Go to Beamable, go check them out. Lots of things are happening there. John, Web3 Gaming is not dead. You're in Dubai. Make sure you enjoy Dubai as well. Make sure you take some time for yourself. Go check out the deserts. Go book the I forgot what the tour is, but there's a tour that takes you out, sets up dinner out there. It's relaxing. Do the dunk, do it all. I love Dubai. I'm actually kind of sad I hit Dubai this year, but hey, I'm gonna be holding it down here back at home while everybody enjoys and posts pictures. But have fun in Dubai. Thanks again for believing in Solana Gaming, and we hope to be supporters and everything you're building as well. We're really, really big fans of everything that Beamable is doing.
Thank you.
Thanks again, John. Have a great day, and to another show. Thanks for everybody tuning in. Bye, John.
See ya.
get a